Yes.
The offense last year, up and down, right? You talked a little bit offseason about wanting to be more explosive. What made you realize that explosiveness was what this offense needed for 2026?
There's not a coordinator out there that doesn't understand you got to be explosive to pursue championships. Thought offense last year was satisfactory in a lot of areas, but with room to grow, even the run game. You get patted on the back for rushing more yards than Bulldogs had in recent history, but if you watch the cut-ups, there's room for improvement in that area as well. So maximizing what we can do on the ground and then getting defenses to zero in on that and taking advantage of one-on-one matchups on the perimeter. The calls were there. The execution wasn't always there last year, but, last year's last year. We're excited to move forward, be better myself, and coach at a high level and get our young men prepared for a good fall of ball control, good run game, efficiency, and explosiveness.
And how different is the quarterback battle this offseason as opposed to the one you had last offseason?
Yeah, it's different young men. Jaden was a part of that battle last year with Carson and EJ. And I've touched on this a couple of times today. When we brought Christian Martin aboard in January, Jaden Mandel didn't flinch. He was hungry, and he told me that, Coach, I'm going to play in a way that's going to be tough to beat out. And I was like, that's exactly what we need out of you. And I've been really pleased with Mandel's focus, his growth off the football field, just personally, being comfortable with who he is and what he's capable of. And the young man had a heck of a spring. And we left spring, and Christian came aboard and had a really good spring as well. And as we talked as a staff, we know that we have a couple of young men that we can win with, and we can pursue a title with either one. The proof is in the play. So as we roll out the ball this fall, we'll put them in a ton of situations to be successful versus a very quality defense across from us. Who's taking care of the ball? Who's making the throws and finding the launch points on a regular basis, and we'll make a decision what's best for Bulldog football.
And the receiver room got a lot coming back. It's way different than last year in that sense as well.
Mm-hmm.
What benefit is there to have a receiver room with so much experience in it?
Yeah, the growth, the football IQ, how the receivers get involved in the run game, how we can get them touches in the RPO world when teams load up the box, and then just comfortability breaking the huddle with banked reps at these play calls that they've heard over and over and over again. Nothing's really new. We have implemented a few new schemes throughout spring ball, but that becomes muscle memory for our guys to break a huddle and have confidence in that. But I think the staff being together for an extra year really there's some hidden benefits to that as well, where our young men are comfortable showing up in our building every day with the same staff, being able to be themselves and speak freely and be the best versions of themselves every single day. You bet.
Coach, you just kind of spoke on how there might not be too many things new, but just coming into year two, is there something that you want to implement differently, or is there a new league, a new conference? Is there anything that you want to do that's new this season?
Yeah, I want to handle the third down pressures better. I want to be able to beat the man coverage looks a little bit better on a consistent basis. I came from a league that was a little bit more bend, don't break, too high zone structured third down defenses, where the Mountain West presented a lot more in-your-face, coming after you type defensive personalities, and that's okay. There's ways to defeat that as well, but just being on top of that a little bit better kind of falls on me and the staff. Coach Ferentz moving over to the O-line is different than Zach Crabtree, so building an install that matches his wants and needs up front, making sure that the O-linemen are getting the reps and the sequenced installs that they need to be successful. It's the same plays, maybe just sequenced a little differently on how we teach that. And there's always new ideas of creative things that teams are doing, whether it's on third down or in the red zone, that we'll make note of. And can this help Bulldog football? Maybe not every week, but maybe week 7 there's a play or two that we've kind of had banked for a while to pull out and use. But there's a double-edged sword. You gotta fall back on your foundation in the most critical moments, and then maybe have a wrinkle when the time's right.
Coach Ennis used to talk about Braden Walton as one of those rising stars last year that was getting just a little bit on all the guys' radar. How have you seen him grow into now being a second-year veteran, right? And
Yeah, I think Braden's very comfortable in our building. He doesn't have to walk on eggshells to prove himself anymore. He's proven himself as somebody who's very accountable, somebody who his peer group really can rally around, knowing what they're going to get out of him every single day. And Braden's still kind of a pup. You know, there's room for growth for Braden in handling bull charges. You know, he's got a big, tall, long body. So being able to anchor down versus bull rush is something that he's focused on improving, but he's really athletic. You know, DNs don't beat him very often laterally. They beat him with power, and he's already shown growth with Coach Ferentz and Coach Petrus helping him grow as a left tackle. But we expect Braden to do some really good things this upcoming fall. And, you know, a lot of the times with the old linemen, if you don't say their name, it's because they're playing at a high level, and I hope that's the case come fall.
Coach, you talked about, obviously the differences that you saw in joining the Mountain West. Now, what are you anticipating to see from other teams now that you guys are?
More of the same. It's a copycat business. What did that team do to shut them down on third down? Well, that's what we're going to do. You see that all over the place, and that's repetitive year after year after year. So as we went through cut-ups and analyzed what was an okay 9-win season, some think it was great, some think we left a little bit on the table, and I would agree. But the areas where we need to be better, were our young men in position to be successful in all of these situations, yes or no? And if not, why? And if not, look at yourself in the mirror and figure out what you got to do to get them ready if and when that situation comes up again. But, you know, I think out here you're going to see the coordinators, a lot of them have NFL experience, or they've been doing this a long time in a variety of leagues. So there's zone pressures, there's man pressures, there's cover zeros. We need to get our young men prepared to handle all of that, because if and when I do make a bad call, which will happen, are we able to handle that the right way? Via audible, via get out of that play call into something better. So our bank and what our quarterbacks and young men have in their repertoire has got to grow, and that was spring ball. That was taken last fall. What didn't we have available that we needed? And let's get that stuff mastered throughout spring and throughout summer, so we can go into the fall, and now it just becomes a foundation of who we are.
Are you expecting this quarterback room to be further along by the start of fall camp as opposed to last year?
Yeah, I am. More banked reps of what we've gone through, and the play calls aren't all that different, and we've got more experience versus different looks than we've had in the past. I'd like to think that I'm a better coach than I was a year ago, and I'd like to think 12 months from now I'll be even better than I am here today. So therefore, hopefully that leads to more tutelage of upbringing of a young man with some talent and getting him ready to reach his potential a little bit faster. I'd like to think that that's very real.
In what ways have you grown within this program?
Shoot, man, I always think a husband and father first. I think I've grown as a husband and just trying to be able to communicate a little bit better, because I'm not very good at it in the first place, and then being present as a dad and leaving work at work when I show up in the driveway every evening, and being the dad that my little girls need me to be. And then on the coaching side, where I think your question stems from, leaning on my staff a little bit more for their strengths, and not just telling it the way it needs to be, but having open conversation about what we can do to be successful. What are we already doing, or what are we not doing that we can do to be successful? We got some really good assistant coaches on our side of the ball, and I'm blessed to be around them on a daily basis. So picking their brain, I even talked about it with install. You know, Coach Ferentz, I don't want to tell you how I'm going to sequence installs. Why don't you tell me what's best for your group up front? And he's called plays at a very high level before as well. So just leaning on the professionals that we have in the building to make myself better, and then over-analyzing and probably over-analyzing recent history of the games we let slip away. What did we do well, and what didn't we do well enough last year? And that stuff doesn't leave my mind very often, which you would hope leads to growth. You don't get what you want. Whatever you dream and hope your girls turn into is pretty much wasted thought, because they're going to be beautiful creatures in their own way. And you know, I'm a big ball sports guy, so it's like, hey man, get a ball in their hand, give them a golf club, but they want to dance, they want to do gymnastics and cartwheels and stuff, and I got to learn to appreciate that for what it is. Well, I got a quality professional in Aaron Pryor who takes that off my plate, to be honest with you. AP, Coach Pryor, how many touches does Ray Luke need? How many touches does Donaldson need? How are we going to get Julius Gillick involved in our game plan? What can Tariq Thomas bring to the table? And I trust him and his perspective on opportunities. We do have different personnel groupings that switches up the backfield. You know, we call it there's an Amigos package which switches up the backfield, and there's different packages that put Donaldson at F and Ray at B, or vice versa, or Gillick's in. And when Brandon Ramirez is healthy, he'll be incorporated in our offense as well. But there's only one ball, so we got to be clever and talented at how we're going to distribute that football to make sure young men touch the ball the adequate amount of times based on performance and based on accountability.
And what type of skill set does each guy bring to the table? And how does that diversify?
Ray Luke's probably the most dangerous ball and hand player, one of the more dangerous ball and hand players on the West Coast. So, that's obviously a treat to have, and he's very tough. People don't understand how tough Ray Luke is. He is a between the tackles running back who can butt heads in the box. He's capable of 25 to 30 carries in a game. It just hasn't presented itself that way with the depth that we have with the running back position group. Bryson Donaldson's more balanced. Bryson's solid across the board, doesn't have extreme strengths or extreme weaknesses. He's very solid across the board and trustable in all situations that this game will provide, whether it's blitz pickup, whether it's catching the ball at the backfield on third down, or it's just base offense on first down. Very accountable, trustworthy running back with Donaldson, who's dangerous enough to take one to the house if that presents itself to you. Gillick, there's just, it's a little bit to be determined as to see what his body of work looks like early in this season. But very talented high school career, tough. He's physically ahead of the game to be a freshman, and as 220-pound freshman who's over 6 foot. We are going to throw Gillick into the fire. Right now, we got him doing a lot without the ball to take place of what Brandon Ramirez isn't able to do for us right now, but Gillick deserves to touch the ball as well. The Red Wave and Bulldog Faithful saw a little bit of Julius in the Tucson, in the Arizona Bowl, and kid's got a good future. Look forward to him showcasing his abilities early in the season and staying healthy.
What's different about coaching at Fresno State as opposed to in Dakota?
It's still 11 on 11. What's different is the amount of people in front of me right now, the exposure, which leads to more expectations, which is awesome. It's awesome when a lot's expected out of you. The Red Wave deserve a good product, and we look forward to satisfying their ambitions for a good offense, good football team that they can be proud of. What's different? You're still working with 18 to 22-year-olds. You're still, answering to a head football coach that's holding you accountable on a day-to-day. You're still going up against quality defensive coordinators throughout spring and fall camp. It's a simple game that we overcomplicate at times, but the exposure and those expectations are probably the only difference. But shoot, man, we were expected to win an NAIA. It's just on a different scale. I expect that man to overachieve and to just flat out work his tail off to be back as soon as possible. I told Brandon when he's healthy, he's in. All right. Thank you, guys.